When did you ever watch someone die over Facetime? My daughter was on a cabin trip with her dad when she Facetimed me in tears. Mommy, the left side of my tummy hurts really bad. I was 7,000 miles away on base in Germany, but I knew that face. Show me where, baby. She pointed to her lower right side. Classic appendicitis symptom. Then she turned the phone and I watched her vomit off the side of the porch. My medical training kicked in immediately. Where's Daddy? He went hunting with Uncle Pete and the guys. Won't he be back until tomorrow night? Her voice was getting weaker. Ashley's here watching us. I pinched the bridge of my nose. Ashley was his 22-year-old girlfriend who he'd been dating for 3 months. Put Ashley on the phone, please. The phone shook as Leah limped inside. Ashley was painting another kid's nails with a beer bottle in her hand. She barely looked up. Hey, Leah's not feeling great. You need to take her to the hospital. No, Ashley laughed. She's fine. Kids get tummy aches. Listen to me. I'm a combat medic. She's showing signs of appendicitis. Lower right quadrant pain, vomiting. She's holding her side when she walks. Yeah, I'm not doing all that. She went back to the nail polish. First off, I don't have permission to take someone else's kid anywhere. Second, your ex told me about you, how you're psycho and always starting drama. I'm not falling for it. My hands were shaking. This isn't drama. Her appendix could rupture even if I wanted to, which I don't. We're 2 hours from any hospital. I can't leave anyway. I'm watching Brad's son too. I tried to stay calm, then call an ambulance to his private property. Yeah, right? He'd flip out. Plus, there's no actual address out here. Just the Forest Service road markers. Over the next 4 hours, I called everyone I could think of. The ranger station couldn't enter private property without owner permission or visible emergency, and Ashley told them everything was fine when they radioed. I called 911, but they needed an address Ashley wouldn't give me. I even called my ex's brother, but he said, not getting in the middle of your custody crap again. Leah's signal was drifting in and out as she tried to find anywhere with service. Every time I saw her, she looked worse. She couldn't even keep water down. And by hour 6, she stopped being able to walk to the service spot. Ashley sent me one text. She's being dramatic for attention because Daddy's not here. Stop encouraging her. I was screaming at my commanding officer, begging for emergency leave when the next video came through. It was from Brad Jr., my ex's son. My daughter was on the bathroom floor, curled in a fetal position. Her lips were gray. Ashley says she's faking, but she looks really bad. He whispered. I called 3 military buddies who lived within 200 miles, begging them to drive out there. But without an address, they couldn't find it. I offered Ashley $5,000, then $10,000 just to drive Leah to the hospital. She said I was trying to bribe her into kidnapping. I had Leah try to make herself throw up, thinking it might relieve pressure, but it only made the pain worse. I even tracked down the local fire chief's personal cell, but he said without the property owner's permission or a specific address. His hands were tied. When my ex finally returned from hunting 14 hours after that first call, Leah's appendix had already ruptured. By the time he got her to the hospital, she'd gone septic. The infection had spread everywhere from the origin up throughout her torso and into her extremities. At the hospital, he told them he'd just returned from a quick supply run and found her like this. Of course, Ashley backed up his story completely. They played their parts perfectly. The doctor pulled my ex-husband aside, and I heard it all over the phone that he'd finally answered. Mr. Leak, the doctor started. You stated you found her in this condition after a quick supply run. Yet, the level of infection suggests that the rupture occurred approximately 10 to 12 hours ago. Your daughter's organs are shutting down. Are you lying to me, Mr. Leak? I practically heard my ex-husband's heart skip a beat. He started shifting the blame immediately. This all happened because my ex-wife didn't ensure proper medical supervision. He spat out. She knew I was going camping with Leah and she didn't arrange appropriate care. Sir, your daughter needed immediate medical attention hours ago. I failed to see how this correlates with your ex-wife. My ex-husband was audibly panicking now. It correlates because her mother failed to arrange proper care. I want that documented. Before the doctor could respond, my ex was screaming about insurance policies, custody care, and my supposed PTSD. The doctor stopped his questioning entirely. Even worse, 3 days later, the infection reached Leah's brain. The swelling caused massive damage before they could control it. My baby girl, my brilliant, funny, perfect daughter, would need machines to breathe for her, to eat for her, to keep her heart beating. The doctor said she might never wake up. I was on a transport flight home when I got the court summons. My ex was filing for sole medical decision-making power, citing my negligent failure to ensure proper medical protocols. That's when something inside me snapped. Not broke, snapped into place. I'd been trained for war, and he had no idea what was about to hit him. The transport wheels hit the tarmac, and I was already unbuckling before we stopped rolling. My escort, some kid fresh out of basic, was scrambling to keep up as I grabbed my bag and headed for the exit. I had 14 hours of notes spread across military letterhead. Every minute of that night written down with times and details. The drive to the hospital took 40 minutes, but felt like hours. Walking into the pica knocked the wind out of me harder than any combat zone ever had. Leah was hooked to more machines than I'd seen on guys we'd pulled off the battlefield. The breathing tube, the feeding tube, monitors tracking every heartbeat, every breath the machine forced into her lungs. The doctor confirmed what I already knew from the phone calls. Septic shock had hit every organ. Multi-organ failure. The infection had reached her brain and caused swelling that might never go away. I stood at attention while he talked, using every trick from training to keep myself upright instead of falling apart. The hospital administrator showed up 20 minutes later with a stack of papers, and there was my ex, already sitting in the conference room. He waved his emergency motion papers around, telling everyone he was the primary parent, and I'd been gone for months. He'd filed for sole medical decision-making power and wanted it done today. I kept my voice steady and told them I'd be fighting this immediately. For hours later, the doctor pulled me into an empty room and opened Leah's chart on his computer. He pointed to the timeline, showing me when the rupture happened based on the infection levels. It matched exactly when I'd first called from Germany. His notes said that getting her to the hospital right away would have stopped the infection from reaching her brain. He turned away while I took pictures of every single page with my phone. My commanding officer called that evening to confirm my emergency leave was approved. 30 days to start with extensions possible if the legal stuff wasn't done. The relief of being here mixed with panic about the clock already ticking. I had to move fast, and I had to move smart. The next morning, Viviana Booth from the hospital social services knocked on the pica door. She'd been assigned to our case and wanted to explain how contested medical guardianship worked. She handed me a thick folder with resources, phone numbers, and a list of lawyers who handled emergency custody changes. Her kindness almost broke through my military wall, but I held it together. I was walking back from the cafeteria when the process server found me. My ex had filed his motion claiming I abandoned Leah by choosing deployment over parenting. The actual words on the paper said, I chose career over child and failed to make sure she had proper care. I made it to the bathroom just in time to throw up from pure rage. When I came back out, something had changed inside me. I was ice cold and ready for war. That night, in my hotel room, I spread out every phone bill and started writing. I documented every single call from that night, writing down exact times and who I called. 43 calls in 4 hours. I wrote down the exact amounts I offered Ashley to drive Leah to the hospital. First $5,000, then $10,000. I transcribed every text, including Ashley's message calling Leah dramatic. I noted the exact times I called 911, the ranger station, the fire chief's personal cell. Military training had taught me that documentation wins battles, and this was going to be my weapon. The next morning was the first family meeting in the ICU. The neurologist went through the brain damage while my ex sat there playing the perfect worried father. The swelling had caused permanent damage to multiple areas. When the doctor mentioned that we might need to talk about withdrawing life support if she didn't improve, my ex jumped in immediately, saying he wanted everything possible done to keep her alive. He shot me this look that said he was already planning to paint me as wanting to pull the plug on our daughter. I asked for everything to be documented in writing, every word of the meeting. The nurse started typing while my ex's face got red. Then he started his attack right there in front of everyone. He told them about my supposed PTSD issues and suggested I wasn't mentally stable enough to make medical decisions for Leah. He said combat had messed me up and I couldn't think clearly about what was best for her. The medical staff looked uncomfortable, shifting in their seats. I stayed calm and told them I was a decorated combat medic with 0 mental health flags on my military record. I'd been cleared by psych every single year and had perfect evaluations. The neurologist cleared his throat and said we should focus on Leah's care, not personal attacks. My ex kept pushing, saying I'd been gone for months and didn't know what Leah needed. The social worker was taking notes the whole time, and I could see her writing down every word he said. He was digging his own hole and didn't even realize it. After the meeting ended, I went straight to the hospital parking garage to make calls from the list Viviana gave me. The third attorney I called was Eliza Haney. And when I explained the situation, she told me to come to her office right now, not tomorrow. Right now. I drove 20 minutes to a small law office downtown and walked in with my folder of documentation already organized by date and time. Eliza was maybe 45 with sharp eyes. And when she saw my phone record showing 43 calls in 4 hours, her whole face changed. She started taking notes immediately while I showed her the screenshots of Ashley's texts calling Leah dramatic and the video Brad Jr. sent of my daughter on that bathroom floor. Her brother Rainer did private investigation work and her partner Matthias handled medical malpractice cases, which meant I'd found exactly the team I needed. She filed an emergency response to my ex's motion that afternoon and scheduled depositions for everyone involved, including Ashley and Brad Jr. the next morning. The hospital administrator called me to say they'd implemented a new policy requiring both parents to consent to any major medical decisions until the court ruled, which meant my ex couldn't make unilateral choices about withdrawing support or moving Leah to a different facility. It was a small victory, but the clock was still ticking on Leah's condition, and we all knew every day mattered. Eliza and I spent the next 6 hours in her conference room drafting my declaration, carefully documenting every attempt I made to get help that night, including the call to his brother, who refused to intervene. We attached phone records showing precise times and durations, screenshots of Ashley's messages, the video from Brad Jr., transcripts of my 911 and Ranger Station calls, and even the text where I offered Ashley $10,000 to drive Leah to the hospital. The evidence stack was already 3 inches thick, and we were only getting started. That evening, while I was doing range of motion exercises with Leah's legs, an ICU nurse pulled me aside and told me her infection markers were finally stabilizing, though the neurological damage was still severe. She mentioned that my ex only came during regular business hours, usually 9 to 5, while I had been there up to 18 hours a day since arriving. When I asked if she could include that in her notes, she gave me a look that said she understood exactly what was going on. 3 days later, at the courthouse scheduling conference, the judge denied my ex's request for immediate sole custody, but set an evidentiary hearing for 3 weeks out. Eliza successfully argued for expedited discovery given Leah's critical condition, and my ex's attorney looked irritated by the compressed timeline, knowing it meant less time to build their defense. The judge also appointed a guardian ad litem to independently represent Leah's interests, selecting Hugh Griffith, a former pediatric nurse turned attorney. Having a neutral party focus solely on Leah's well-being felt like the first real safeguard she'd had since this ordeal began. That same week, Ronald Waller from JAG contacted me after my commanding officer reached out about my situation. He guided me through the military protections available in custody disputes and helped secure affidavits from my commanding officers attesting to my mental fitness and strong service record. Having the military's official backing against my ex's PTSD claims felt like calling in air support when pinned down. Hospital security also revised their visitor policy after I provided Viviana with evidence of Ashley's negligence that night at the cabin, resulting in Ashley's removal from the approved visitor list during the investigation. My ex exploded in the lobby when security blocked Ashley from visiting Leah, and the entire outburst was caught on camera. Viviana documented his aggressive behavior in her report, including him shouting at staff until 3 officers escorted him out. Meanwhile, Raynor worked with a digital forensics expert to preserve metadata from the Facetime calls, verifying exact times and durations. The expert confirmed none of the videos had been altered and prepared a chain of custody report solid enough for court. Piece by piece, the evidence from that night was forming a timeline that shredded my ex's version of events. Eliza also subpoenaed county property records to confirm the cabin's GPS coordinates. The documents showed it was a registered property with clear access roads and a 15-year ownership history in my ex's family. Emergency services had even responded there twice before. His claim that it was impossible to find was crushed by the county's records, which included maps and photos of the property entrance. The next morning, as I adjusted Leah's feeding tube at the hospital, Eliza called with more good news. The ranger station had released their official radio logs from that night, and they were devastating. The timestamp showed Ashley telling them everything was fine at 9:47 p.m., the same time my phone records proved Leah had been vomiting for hours. The ranger remembered the call clearly, especially because Ashley had been laughing in the background while describing the sick child. He signed an affidavit saying he would have responded immediately if Ashley hadn't kept insisting Leah was just being dramatic. I added that to my binder of evidence while the machines around my daughter beeped steadily. The phone company delivered certified records, 43 calls in 4 hours starting at 7:32 p.m. They showed 17 calls to 911, 8 unanswered to my ex, 6 to his brother, several to friends, and 5 pleading with Ashley to help. The longest was 27 minutes with 911, trying to describe landmarks while they asked for a proper address. These records told a story completely different from my ex's claims. 2 days later, Raynor discovered my ex had checked into Willow Creek Station at 6:15 a.m. and didn't check out until 9:45 p.m., gone over 15 hours, not on a short supply run as he told doctors. Ashley's social media confirmed the neglect, photos of her drinking and partying at the cabin while Leah was collapsing in pain. Raynor created a timeline showing her drinking escalating as Leah's condition worsened. Medical expert Alonso Guerrero confirmed Leah's appendix ruptured between 8 to 9 p.m. and said if she'd received care within 4 hours, the infection would not have spread to her brain. His conclusion was clear: this was a preventable tragedy. Brad Jr.'s mother also gave a statement, including screenshots of texts where her son begged Ashley to take Leah seriously. CPS launched a neglect investigation after the hospital's report. The caseworker noted my ex kept changing his story about where he'd been and when he returned. Meanwhile, I began therapy with Barlsnow to counter my ex's PTSD claims. Her reports showed I was stable, processing grief appropriately, and using my military training to stay focused. Guardian ad litem Hugh Griffith spent hours observing me at the hospital, noting my knowledge of Leah's care, the bond one maintained with her, and the trust nurses placed in my input. When he interviewed my ex, the contradictions piled up. He claimed he rushed back, then that he never got calls, then admitted he ignored them. The hunting station logs proved his absence was 14 hours, not a few. The next morning, a nurse told me the ethics committee wanted to meet about long-term care planning. In the conference room, 5 members explained quality of life assessments, brain scan outcomes, and protocols for children on life support. They handed us DNR and withdrawal forms that made my stomach turn, but I stayed composed, taking notes and asking questions while my ex just nodded along. 3 days later, I caught him in the corridor with Ashley, who was still banned. He yelled accusations while she smirked, but security quickly intervened, reminding me it was all on camera. I walked past without reacting. Soon after, Eliza got emergency service logs confirming the fire department had tried to respond 3 times, but was blocked by property owner refusal. Ranger logs showed Ashley repeatedly claiming Leah was fine. Phone tower data proved Leah had walked the same route over and over trying to find signal, her attempts growing weaker until the last connection, hours before my ex finally took her to the hospital. The expert said this was consistent with medical distress, not drama. Eliza filed for a protective order, and the judge banned Ashley from caring for any minors, citing her drinking and refusal to call 911. That night, I sat in my hotel room drafting a precise timeline, cross-referencing every call, text, and medical record. It took 4 nights, but Eliza said it was better than most lawyers' work. County GIS confirmed the cabin's GPS and access roads, and the property owner testified there were no barriers to emergency vehicles, destroying my ex's claim it was unreachable. Hospital records later showed my ex returned to the cabin at 11:30 p.m., but didn't check Leah in until 2:47 a.m., a 3-hour delay. The medical expert added this worsened her brain swelling. Forensics authenticated Brad Jr. S video showing Leah barely conscious at 8:15 p.m., directly contradicting my ex's story. Weeks later, in deposition, Ashley tried to deny drinking, but Matthias confronted her with Instagram posts and metadata. The evidence was undeniable. During her deposition, Ashley admitted she never checked on Leah after 8 p.m. and even called me dramatic in sworn testimony. She contradicted herself repeatedly, first claiming she needed permission to take a child to the hospital, then admitting she'd driven Brad Jr. to urgent care weeks earlier. Matthias confronted her with texts and social media posts,